You know that feeling in the pit of your stomach on a Sunday night? That cold, hollow weight that tells you something is deeply wrong, even though your life looks perfect on paper? Most people call that stress. I call it your soul screaming through a gag. See, you've been told a lie since the day you could crawl. They told you that poor is a number on a screen. They told you that if you just worked hard enough to buy the silence of a gated community and the status of a German-engineered engine, you'd finally be rich. But look at you. You're sitting in the life you used to pray for, and you've never felt more like a ghost. You've traded your hunger for an appetite. You've traded your purpose for payments. You aren't wealthy, man. You're just a high-maintenance slave. You've built a cage so expensive that you're now too afraid to leave it. That's the Golden Treadmill. And it's the most efficient way to kill a lion. Think about it. You're running hard. You're hustling. You're grinding. But your feet haven't touched new ground in years. You're just generating power for a machine that doesn't care about your name. Every promotion is just a longer chain. Every raise is just a thicker wall between you and the person you were actually meant to become. The lie that is keeping you poor isn't about your salary. It's the belief that comfort is the goal. Biology doesn't care about your comfort. Biology only cares about growth, and growth only happens in the friction. By seeking a life without struggle, you've accidentally opted out of being alive. You're rotting in a climate-controlled room. You've become spiritually poor, bankrupt of risk, void of adventure, and terrified of the very thing that made your ancestors great, the unknown. You think you're safe because you have a stable job and a good reputation? That's not safety. That's a hostage situation. You're one restructuring or one market shift away from realizing you have no skills left because you haven't had to fight for a decade. The real poor aren't the ones with nothing to lose. The real poor are the ones who have so much to lose that they've stopped moving. They've stopped dreaming. They've stopped biting. It's time to stop lying to yourself. You aren't winning. You're just the most decorated prisoner in the block. And the worst part? You're the one holding the key, but you're too damn comfortable to turn it. If you don't find a way to break this treadmill, you won't die of old age. You'll die of boredom at 35 and just wait 40 years for them to bury the body. So I have to ask you, how much is your soul actually worth? Because right now you're selling it for a view of a city you're too tired to enjoy. So you've realized you're on the treadmill. You've felt the gold cracking under your feet and you've seen the hollow look in your own eyes. But now comes the dangerous part. Now comes the part where your brain tries to talk you back into the cage. This is the whisper of the lie. It doesn't come at you with a shout. It doesn't sound like an enemy. It sounds like your own voice, or maybe the voice of a worried parent or a sensible friend. It's that soft, reasonable tone that creeps in at 2 a.m. when the house is quiet. It tells you that you're being ungrateful. It asks you who you think you are to want more than enough. The lie tells you that the rules were written for your protection. It tells you that if you just keep your head down for another 5 years, you'll finally have the permission to be happy. It's the someday trap. You know the one. Someday when the mortgage is lower. Someday when the kids are through school. Someday when you have a little more cushion in the bank. But here's the secret they don't want you to know. The cushion is the coffin. The people who designed this system didn't want you to be a revolutionary. They didn't want you to be a master of your own fate. They wanted you to be a reliable, predictable unit of consumption. They need you to be just wealthy enough to have things to lose, but just poor enough to have to show up on Monday morning. They want you focused on the brand of your shoes so you don't notice the direction of your life. The whisper tells you that safety is the highest virtue. But ask yourself, safe from what? Safe from the risk of failing? Maybe. But in exchange, you're also safe from the risk of winning. You're safe from the chance of ever finding out what you're actually capable of when the safety net is gone. We've been conditioned to fear the darkness of the unknown, but the real darkness is the fluorescent light of a cubicle where dreams go to be filed away. The real poverty is the belief that your worth is tied to your ability to follow a script you didn't even write. Every time you feel that spark of rebellion, the whisper gets louder. It reminds you of your bills. It reminds you of your reputation. It shows you pictures of people who failed as if they're a warning, while it hides the millions of people who succeeded and ended up dead inside before they hit 40. The lie is the belief that you are the things you own. It's the belief that your title defines your power. But true power isn't given by a corporation or a bank. True power is the ability to walk away from a table where respect is no longer being served. Most people will spend their entire lives listening to this whisper. They will die with their music still inside them, clutching a 401k they're too old to use. They'll tell themselves they did the responsible thing. But you're starting to see the wires in the walls. You're starting to realize that the only thing keeping you poor isn't a lack of money, it's the abundance of fear disguised as common sense. The whisper is going to tell you to stop reading this, to stop thinking this way, to go back to sleep. It's going to tell you that you're being unrealistic. Good. Because reality is just the name we give to the cage everyone else has agreed to live in. And it's time for you to stop being a resident. There comes a point in the cycle where the distractions stop working. The fancy dinners taste like cardboard, the engine of the car sounds like a funeral march, and the likes on your screen feel like a slow-moving poison. You walk into your bathroom, you lock the door, and you lean over the sink. You splash cold water on your face, hoping to wash away the fog, but when you look up, you aren't looking at your reflection anymore. You're looking at the mirror of truth. The mirror doesn't care about your title. It doesn't care about the brand on your chest or the zip code you sleep in. It looks right through the expensive armor you've built and shows you the one thing you've been running from, the man you were supposed to be. In the glass, he's standing right there. He's lean, he's hungry, and he has a fire in his eyes that could burn down a city. He's the version of you that didn't take the safe bet. He's the version that didn't sell his soul for a competitive salary and a weekend at the lake. He looks at you, the current you, with a mix of pity and absolute disgust. And then he speaks. He asks you, is this it? Is this the masterpiece you promised we'd build? You try to argue. You try to tell him about the inflation, the market, the responsibilities, the way the world works. You try to explain that you're being practical. But the mirror of truth doesn't accept excuses. It shows you the biological reality. It shows you how your shoulders have slumped to accommodate the weight of the leash. It shows you the gray film over your eyes that comes from looking at spreadsheets instead of horizons. It reminds you that your body is a high-performance machine designed for the hunt, for the struggle, for the climb, yet you've used it to sit in an ergonomic chair for 10 hours a day. You are an apex predator that has been domesticated by a paycheck. You've been bribed into your own extinction. The mirror shows you this safety illusion for what it really is, a slow decay. It shows you that every day you spend waiting for the right time is a day you are actively dying. You think you're preserving your life, but you're actually just watching it evaporate. The reflection reaches out and touches the glass. It points to your heart and reminds you of the friction you used to love. The late nights when you had nothing but an idea. The moments when your back was against the wall and you felt electric because you had to win. That's where your power lives. It doesn't live in the air-conditioned silence of your current success. It lives in the storm you're so afraid to walk back into. This is the most painful part of the journey. Because once you've seen the mirror of truth, you can't unsee it. You can try to go back to the treadmill. You can try to listen to the whisper again. But every time you look in a mirror, even for a second, you'll see that shadow of greatness looking back at you, waiting for you to stop being a coward. The mirror isn't there to humiliate you. It's there to wake you up. It's showing you that the poor version of you, the one who is stuck, the one who is rotting, is an identity you can choose to shed. But to do that, you have to be willing to break the glass. You have to be willing to kill the person you've become to let the person you were meant to be finally breathe. Are you going to look away? Or are you going to finally admit that the man in the mirror is right? The realization is over. The talking is done. You've stood in front of that mirror long enough to see the rot, and now you're left with the only choice that actually matters. You can either walk back out that door, adjust your tie, and pretend the ghost in the glass was just a trick of the light, or you can decide to burn it all down. I'm not talking about a metaphorical fire. I'm talking about the cold, calculated destruction of the safety nets that have become your noose. Most people think progress is about adding things. They think they need more money, more connections, more gear. But the high-performance man knows that true rebirth is an act of subtraction. It's about looking at your stable life, the high-rise office, the luxury lease, the social circle that only talks about real estate and vacations, and realizing that as long as those things exist, you will always be a coward. As long as you have a soft place to land, you will never learn how to fly. So you make the decision to burn. It starts with a quiet no. No to the promotion that would have tied you down for another 5 years. No to the fake friendships that require you to stay small to keep them comfortable. No to the belief that you owe society a version of yourself that is manageable and predictable. You start cutting the wires. You sell the car that was a status symbol but a financial anchor. You walk away from the job that pays you just enough to forget your dreams but not enough to ever achieve them. You watch the looks on people's faces, the shock, the pity, the concern. They'll tell you you're having a breakdown. They'll call you unstable. They'll try to pull you back into the warmth because your fire makes them realize how cold they actually are. But you don't listen. You can't. Because you've tasted the truth, and the truth is that the stability they're selling is just a slow-motion car crash. There is a terrifying beauty in watching your bridges burn. As the flames go up, the path behind you disappears. The option to quit vanishes. The plan B that was keeping you weak is reduced to ash. And for the first time in your adult life, you feel a sensation you've forgotten. True raw urgency. When there is no way back, your brain stops looking for excuses and starts looking for weapons. The biological trap of safety is finally broken. Your nervous system wakes up. Your senses sharpen. You aren't comfortable anymore. You're dangerous. This is the great stripping. You are losing your wealth, your status, and your reputation, but you are gaining your edge. You're trading a silk-lined cage for a barren field, and while the world sees a man losing everything, the mirror of truth sees a man finally becoming a threat. It's a lonely night when the fires finally die down and you're standing in the wreckage of your old life. The silence is heavy. There is no applause. There is no safety. There is just you, the darkness, and the terrifying realization that everything from here on out is on you. No more experts to follow. No more systems to protect you. You are finally poor enough to be powerful. You are finally empty enough to be filled with something real. The decision to burn isn't an act of anger. It's an act of worship for the person you were meant to be. It's the moment you stop being a consumer of your own life and start being the architect of it. The bridge is gone. The smoke is clearing. Now tell me, what are you going to build on the ashes? The high of the fire is gone. The adrenaline has drained out of your system and the world didn't end. But it didn't cheer either. You've walked away from the high-rise, the title, and the cushion, and for the first time, you aren't looking at a spreadsheet. You're looking at a blank wall in a room that smells like dust and cold air. Welcome to the descent into friction. This is the part the motivational posters don't show you. They show the before and the after, but they skip the messy, agonizing middle where your ego gets dragged across the pavement. Right now, you're experiencing the great silence. Your phone has stopped buzzing because you're no longer useful to the people who only liked your status. The friends who used to call you for dinner are suddenly busy because your presence makes them uncomfortable. You are a living reminder of the risk they are too afraid to take. This isn't a transition, it's a detox. You are literally sweating out the lie that was fed to you for decades. In the beginning, friction feels like failure. It's the car that won't start when you need it most. It's the no from the first investor. It's the realization that you've forgotten how to do the basic, gritty work because you've spent too long delegating it to people beneath you. Your brain is a biological machine designed for efficiency, and right now, it is screaming at you to go back to the warmth. It's trying to convince you that you made a mistake, that you're too old or too late, and that the poor life is all you deserve. But friction isn't your enemy. Friction is the only thing that creates heat. Think about a diamond. It isn't born in a spa. It's born under the kind of pressure that would crush a human skull. Think about a blade. It doesn't get sharp by being polished with silk. It gets sharp by being ground against a stone until the sparks fly. You are being ground down. The soft parts of you, the entitlement, the need for approval, the habit of looking for the easy way out, are being burned away by the sheer difficulty of your new reality. Every time you have to figure out how to survive on a fraction of what you used to spend, you are building a muscle that the rich version of you never had. You are learning the difference between value and price. This phase is lonely. It's supposed to be. You are in the wilderness, stripping away the person the world told you to be so you can finally meet the person you actually are. When you have nothing left to lose, you find out what you are truly made of. Are you a man who only works when the coffee is hot and the AC is at 72 degrees? Or are you a man who can build a kingdom in the dark with bleeding hands? The descent into friction is where the lie finally dies. You realize that you weren't poor because you lacked money. You were poor because you lacked the grit to face a day without a guarantee. Don't look for the exit. Don't look for a hand up. Lean into the resistance. Let it hurt. Let it exhaust you. Because the version of you that survives this friction is the only version capable of holding the wealth that's coming. You're not falling, you're being forged. The descent was about the world pushing against you, but the night of the wolf is about you pushing against yourself. It happens in the dead of night, usually between 2 o'clock and 4 a.m., when the silence of your room becomes a physical weight. There is no one to impress, no one to lie to, and no one to blame. The fires of the great burning have gone cold, and you are left sitting in the pitch black with the most dangerous predator you will ever face, your own instinct to surrender. This is the night of the wolf. Inside your head, a voice starts to howl. It's the ancient, biological part of your brain, the part that evolved to keep you safe in a cave. It tells you that you've gone too far. It weaponizes your memories, showing you cinematic montages of your old life. The soft bed, the guaranteed paycheck, the respect of people who now think you've lost your mind. It tells you that there is still time to go back, to apologize, to beg for your old cage. The wolf is your ego's survival mechanism. It feeds on your isolation. It tries to convince you that the friction isn't forging you, it's breaking you. It whispers that you aren't a lion, you're just a fool who traded a kingdom for a closet. Most people break here. They turn the lights on, grab their phone, and start looking for a way back into the lie. They trade their destiny for a night of sleep. But you have to realize that the wolf isn't trying to kill you, it's trying to test if you're worth the life you're claiming. If you want to be dangerous, if you want to be the person the mirror of truth showed you, you have to sit in that darkness and refuse to blink. You have to look the wolf in the eyes and tell it, I am not afraid of the hunger. I am afraid of the feast that cost me my soul. This is where the biological trap is finally dismantled. When you can sit in total uncertainty with no money in your pocket and no plan in your hand, and still feel a sense of resolve, you have won. You are no longer a slave to your environment. You have found the inner sun that doesn't depend on the world being kind to you. The night of the wolf is the final filter. It's the barrier between the dreamer and the doer. On the other side of this night, you stop reacting to life and start dictating it. The poor mindset, the one that needs a guarantee to function, is finally eaten by the very wolf that tried to scare you. When the sun finally comes up, you won't be the same man. Your eyes will be harder. Your hands will be steadier. You'll realize that the darkness didn't swallow you. It showed you that you are the light. The night of the wolf is over. You survived the darkness, and you've emerged into a cold, quiet morning where the world looks exactly the same, but you are fundamentally different. The desperation has been replaced by a terrifying clarity. You aren't looking for a job or a lucky break anymore. You're looking for leverage. Welcome to the blueprint of the few. This is the mechanical shift. Up until now, you've been fighting a spiritual war, but now you have to build a physical empire. Most people fail here because they try to build their new life using their old tools. They think in terms of hours worked and salaries earned. They are still thinking like employees, even if they're calling themselves entrepreneurs. The few, the ones who actually break the gravity of the golden treadmill, don't trade time for money. They trade systems for freedom. The blueprint is built on 3 brutal pillars: isolation, skill stack, and scalable leverage. First, you double down on the isolation. You don't need a network of people who are still on the treadmill. You need a vacuum where you can obsess. While everyone else is collaborating and networking at happy hours, you are in a dark room building a set of skills that make you an anomaly. You are stacking high-value abilities, psychology, coding, sales, storytelling, until you are a one-man army. You aren't trying to be good at your job. You are trying to become a person who is impossible to replace. Second, you stop looking at money as something to spend and start seeing it as soldiers to send into battle. Every dollar you saved by burning your luxury life is now a worker that stays up 24 hours a day for you. You don't buy things, you buy assets that generate more assets. You live like a ghost so you can eventually live like a king. Third, you find your lever. In the modern world, you don't need 1,000 employees to be powerful. You need code or content. You need something that can work while you sleep, something that doesn't care if you're tired or sick. You build a machine that delivers value to 1 million people at the same cost it takes to deliver it to one. The blueprint of the few is boring. It's repetitive. It's 1,000 invisible days of work where no one is watching and no one is clapping. It's the great boredom that follows the great friction. Most people quit here because they miss the drama of the struggle. They miss the excitement of the hustle. But you aren't hustling. You're architecting. You're no longer running on the golden treadmill. You're building the power plant that runs the whole city. You've moved from being the energy source for the machine to being the owner of the system. The rich people you used to envy now look like children to you. They have money, but they don't have time. They have status, but they don't have peace. You are following a map that isn't sold in bookstores and isn't taught in universities. It's a blueprint written in the blood of the people who were brave enough to walk away. It's the realization that true wealth is the ability to say no to anyone at any time for any reason. The blueprint is in your hands. The tools are on the table. The only question left is, do you have the discipline to follow the plan when the adrenaline of the rebellion fades into the silence of the work? The blueprint was the work, the isolation, and the silent discipline. But the rebirth? This is the moment the world finally looks back at you and realizes it can no longer recognize you. You aren't the man who walked away from the high rise. You aren't even the man who sat in the dark with the wolf. That version of you is dead. He had to die. He was too soft, too needy, and too afraid of what people thought. The man standing here now is something entirely different. He is the after that people talk about in whispers, the one they call lucky because they weren't there for the descent. Rebirth doesn't feel like a celebration. It feels like a quiet, terrifying expansion. Suddenly, the things that used to make you sweat, the market crashes, the opinions of your former peers, the pressure of a deadline, feel like nothing. They are tiny ripples in an ocean you've learned to command. You've stopped chasing wealth and started attracting it, because you've become a person of such high value that the world has no choice but to pay you. But here is the real twist of the rebirth. The money doesn't matter anymore. That's the ultimate irony. When you finally reach the mountaintop, when the systems are humming and the freedom is total, you realize that the bank account was just a scoreboard for the war you were having with yourself. You look at the golden treadmill you used to run on and you don't feel anger. You feel a profound, detached pity. You see the people still on it, the ones you used to think were your betters, and you realize they are trapped in a hallucination. They are still selling their hours for a safety that doesn't exist. Your rebirth is the realization that you have regained your biological sovereignty. You wake up when you're done sleeping. You work because you're inspired, not because you're obligated. You speak the truth because you have nothing to lose and no one to please. You've traded the gilded cage for the open sky. People will try to come back into your life now. The ones who called you unstable will ask for your advice. The ones who went quiet will tell everyone they always knew you had it in you. You'll see them clearly for the first time, not as enemies but as ghosts of the person you used to be. You'll find that you have nothing to say to them. Your language has changed. You speak in terms of decades, legacies, and impact. They still speak in terms of weekends and paychecks. The rebirth is a lonely place, but it's a clean loneliness. It's the silence of the apex predator. You have found the friction you were looking for, and it has polished you until you shine. You are lean, you are sharp, and for the first time in your life you are actually truly free. You look in the mirror one last time. The mirror of truth isn't a threat anymore. It's a teammate. The man in the glass nods back at you. The fire in his eyes is no longer a warning, it's a beacon. You aren't rich, Elias. You are powerful. And power is the only currency that survives the grave. The climb is over. The systems are running, the money is flowing, and the world has finally recognized your new face. But as the noise of the struggle fades, you realize there is one final, silent level to this game. It's the level most successful people never reach because they get distracted by the applause. Welcome to the true apex. Being an apex isn't about having the most, it's about needing the least. It's the moment you realize that the ultimate luxury isn't a faster car or a bigger house. It's the ability to be completely still. It's the power to exist in a room with nothing but your own thoughts and not feel the urge to escape into a screen or a distraction. You've spent years building a kingdom, but the true apex is the realization that you are not the kingdom. You are the consciousness that created it. At this height, you stop looking at the world as a place to take from and start seeing it as a canvas to paint on. You don't work for more because you already have enough. You work for meaning. You become a patron of the light. You start looking for the old you, the hungry, trapped version of yourself sitting in some glass office right now, and you start leaving breadcrumbs. Not to save them, because everyone has to go through their own fire, but to remind them that the exit exists. The true apex is a state of biological and spiritual harmony. You've mastered the friction, you've survived the wolf, and you've built the blueprint. Now you finally get to play the game for the sake of the game. You are the hunter who no longer needs the kill to feel alive. You are the architect who builds just to see if the structure can touch the clouds. You look down at the city below, at the millions of people still running on the golden treadmills, still listening to the whispers, still terrified of the mirror. You don't feel superior. You feel a deep, quiet responsibility. You are a reminder of what is possible when a human being decides that safety is a lie and comfort is a slow death. You aren't just rich. You aren't just powerful. You are awake. The journey that started with a Sunday night pit in your stomach has led you to a Tuesday morning where you feel no pressure, no fear, and no debt to anyone but your own potential. You have reached the summit, and the air up here is thin, cold, and incredibly clear. You take a deep breath. You look at the horizon. And for the first time in your life, you aren't looking for a way forward. You are exactly where you were always meant to be. The story doesn't end here. It just stops being a struggle and starts being a legacy. Now, what are you going to do with all that light?